All right, guys, today we're going to work on lesson 7-6, and we are going to be identifying fractions that are less than, greater than, and equal to 1 on a number line. Before we get started in our workbook, though, I want to do a little bit of a mini lesson, and I need you to have a blank piece of paper out, or maybe a dry erase board, just something that you can draw and write on. So if you need to pause the video for a couple of seconds while you go and gather your materials, and then we'll get started. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Since you don't have any fraction circle pieces in front of you, like as if you were at school, I want you to go ahead and draw your fraction circles. And we know how to do that properly. We've learned how to draw fraction circles and use them as tools. So I want you to go ahead and draw for me 1/2. So make your fraction circle. You know our denominator is a 2, so we're going to divide that into 2 equal pieces. And the numerator is a 1, so you're going to shade 1 out of the 2 pieces to show me 1/2. Okay? And this is a fraction that you're completely familiar with. Now I want you to draw for me and shade in 2/2. Okay, so go ahead and draw that. If you want to pause the video for just a second while you draw it. Okay, this is what your fraction circle should look like. Okay, go ahead and divide that into 2 equal pieces, and you're going to shade in 2 out of the 2 equal pieces. So you notice that you have shaded 1 whole pizza. Now we've talked about this a little bit before. When the numerator and the denominator are the same, we know that that equals 1 whole. All right, now I want you to draw 3/2. And I want you to go ahead and pause the video for a second. I want you to draw 3/2 and see what you come up with. Okay? It should look something like this. If I'm going to model 3/2, if I get to eat 3/2 of the pizza, okay, I'm going to divide my pizza into 2 equal slices, and I'm going to shade 3. So 1, 2, what's going to happen? I'm going to need to bake another pizza, right? Go ahead and divide that pizza into 2 equal slices. The denominator is always going to stay the same, and I'm going to shade in my 3rd piece of pizza. Now look what you have. You have 1 whole pizza, plus you have half of another pizza. And this is called a mixed number, when you have a whole number and a fraction. Now what do you notice about this fraction? This is what I want you to really look at. Did you notice that the numerator was bigger than the denominator? When a fraction is bigger than a whole, you're going to see a fraction with a numerator bigger than the denominator. Because think about it, if you get to eat more slices than what you even have the pizza cut up into, you're going to have another pizza, right? So what I need you to recognize during this lesson is that when you have a fraction where the numerator is smaller than the denominator, you have a fraction that is less than 1 whole. If you have a numerator that is equal to the denominator, then you have a fraction that is equal to 1 whole. And if you have a numerator that is bigger than the denominator, you have a fraction that is greater than 1 whole. Okay, so that's what our lesson is going to be about today, is recognizing fractions that are less than, greater than, and equal to 1 whole. So we're going to go ahead and get our workbooks out and look at that. You're going to need page 232 in your workbooks. Okay, now we're going to look at what that looks like in terms of modeling fractions on a number line. So we just looked at fractions that are less than a whole, equal to a whole, and greater than a whole using fraction circles. Now let's look to see what that looks like on a number line. Because remember, a number line is another tool that we are learning to use to be able to model fractions, find equivalent fractions, and be able to find fractions that are, or compare fractions to see which fractions are bigger. All right, so let's look at these number lines on page 232. Sorry if this sounds a little bit choppy. I've literally been interrupted 3 times while I've been trying to make this video. So I've paused it 3 times. Isn't that just like school, right? How many times do we get interrupted in a day? All right, so let's look at page 232 and let's look at number line A. All right, lost my marker too, just like in school. All right, so here's what we need to notice on our number line. So we have a number line. Now remember, I told you to kind of think of your number lines like maybe a pond. So when we think of our fraction circles, we always kind of think about pizzas. Let's think about when we have a number line that we have a pond. And this pond goes from 0 to 1, and we're going to have a frog that's going to jump across the whole pond. Now we're going to look to see how this one whole pond is divided. And when you look at this particular pond, it is divided into 1, 2, 3 sections, okay? But these being kind of like the lily pads that the frogs can hop onto. And so this number line is divided into 3 equal sections, so we can say that this number line is divided into thirds, okay? So when we start labeling these fractions, they wanted you to label this fraction right here where there's the dot. If I had a frog jumping from 0 to 1, and the frog jumped to that dot, the frog jumped 1, 2 hops out of 3, so 2/3 of the way. Let's go ahead and fill in the rest of the number line. So if the frog started here at 0, the frog traveled 0/3 of the pond. When the frog jumps here on the number line, the frog jumped 1 out of 3 hops. When the frog jumps here, the frog has jumped 2 out of 3 jumps. And when the frog jumps all the way to the end, the frog has traveled 3 out of 3 hops, or 3/3, which equals 1 whole. Okay? Now let's look at number line B. This is where sometimes you might get a little bit tripped up. Okay? Take a look at it. How do you think this number line is divided? I'll give you a second to look at it and to count the spaces. Now, how many of you thought that it was divided into fourths? Because you saw 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. Okay? If you thought it was divided into fourths, don't feel bad. Everybody always makes that mistake the first time we start really looking at number lines. But what I need you to really pay attention to is how many ponds are on this number line. How many whole ponds? You see the number 0, 1 whole, and 2 whole. That means there's 2 whole ponds to travel across. Now, how's the frog traveling across that pond? To get from 0 to 1, this pond is divided into 1, 2 sections, as well as this pond is divided into 1, 2 sections. So each whole pond is divided in half. So this number line is divided into halves. Okay, so we're trying to get to this section here of the pond. So let's just start at the beginning. If the frog was right here at the beginning of the number line, the frog has traveled 0 halves. When the frog hops to this first lily pad or this first spot on the number line, the frog has traveled 1/2 or 1 out of 2 jumps. When the frog travels here on the number line, the frog has traveled 2 out of 2 jumps, which equals what? 1 whole. And there we are at our 1 whole. And the frog keeps traveling across this pond. And now the frog is in the second pond and has traveled 3 halves of the way. And when the frog travels to the very end of this number line, the frog has traveled 4 halves. All right, now notice right here on the number line, our fraction, the numerator was the same as the denominator. And we know that equals 1 whole. Every fraction after that, did you notice the numerator was bigger than the denominator? That means everything past this point is going to be greater than 1 whole. Let's look at this fraction as if it were a pizza. So let's shade 4 halves. I'm going to draw my pizza, divide it in half. And I'm going to shade in 4 slices. 1, 2. What do I got to do? Bake another pizza, divide it in half, 3, and 4. How much pizza is that? 2 whole pizzas. And there we are on the number line. So you can see how the number line is just like our fraction circles, and it's just another way to model our fractions. All right, so I'm going to let you go ahead and do the rest of the number lines on the rest of this page and the next page, all on your own. I just need you to remember, as you're looking to see how these number lines are divided, make sure that you're paying attention to the whole, okay? How many pieces is the whole divided into? So just to give you a hint on this very next one, you're going to look from 0 to 1, and it is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So this number line is divided into fourths as you get ready to start labeling your number line. All right, guys, if you have any questions, make sure that you reach out and ask me, and I'll help you answer any questions. But I think you're good to go to finish the rest of these workbook pages. I'll catch you in the next lessons.